Hello, and welcome to this lesson on the lead up to the American Revolution. Just a quick about me, my name's Ritik. I'm a senior at Los Altos High School, and I'm interested in computer science, math, and chemistry. So before we talk about the lead up to the revolution, let's give a brief overview of what exactly the revolution was. So before America was a nation, it was a region comprised of different colonies in the east of North America, controlled by Britain. Now, the American Revolution itself was an important war fought between colonists in America and the British. A quick summary of what caused the revolution was that the colonists wanted independence from British rule due to growing tensions. Before we delve deep into what caused the revolution, we need to give briefly some background. An important event for the British was the French and Indian War. This war, which lasted 9 years, was fought in North America. Essentially, the French were expanding into the Ohio River Valley, which was very close to the British colonies. As a result, the British declared war. In the end, the British were successful and received Canada and Spain. However, the British were in deep debt after having to spend a lot of money on the war effort. In order to recover their debts, the British had to impose new taxes on the colonies. Some of these taxes included the Sugar Act, which imposed taxes on select foreign goods, the Quartering Act, which required colonists to provide housing for soldiers, and the Stamp Act, which required documents and printed materials to have a stamp that could only be obtained by paying a tax. Now, because the colonists were being forced to essentially pay more taxes for a war they really didn't even support, the colonists were angry. One of the biggest reasons they were angry is what's called taxation without representation. This is an important concept that essentially means that the colonists were angry that they were being taxed without having any say or decision on these taxes. As a result, representatives from different colonies met during the Stamp Act Congress to form a protest against the Stamp Act. With the growing protests, the British had to do something. As a result, they eventually repealed the Stamp Act. However, they still wanted to show that they had the right to impose taxes on the colonies, since the colonies were under the British rule. As a result, they imposed the Townshend Acts, which essentially taxed goods on imports. Obviously, since the British were still taxing without representation, the colonists kept protesting. Eventually, this led to the Boston Massacre, which is an important event. During this event, colonists found a British soldier and started insulting him. Afterwards, the soldier struck a colonist, which prompted more soldiers and colonists to come. Although we don't know exactly what occurred, violence escalated, and in the end, the British soldiers shot and killed several colonists. Another key event was the Boston Tea Party. During this event, colonists dumped over 300 chests of British tea into the Boston Harbor. This was in protest of the tea monopoly and the Townshend Acts, which, as we know, taxed imports. After these violent acts, the British responded by enforcing the coercive, or also known as the Intolerable Acts. These acts punished colonists and enforced strict rules, such as the banning of town meetings, the closure of the Boston Harbor, and the reinforcing of the Quartering Act. Now, in response, representatives met again from the colonies and organized a resistance to these acts. And after a second meeting in 1775, the colonists prepared for war, and this in turn led to the American Revolution. Now that you've been given a brief overview of the lead up to the Revolution, here are 2 reflection questions that you can answer on your own. While these have no correct answers, it's a good idea to try answering them to try and see the difficulties for both sides, the British and the colonists. That'll be all for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching, and here are the links to our social media pages and our website. Again, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for our next episode. Goodbye.